My son was on the porch shouting, "Open this damn door, Mom!" Behind him, his wife's voice sliced through the air. "You can't lock us out. We live here." Their fists pounded against the wood, each hit harder, more desperate, until the whole house seemed to tremble. The air smelled like salt and anger, the Florida sun cutting through the curtains like a blade. But I didn't move. I'd been scared long enough. My name is Dolores Whitaker. I'm 66 years old, and the people screaming outside are the same ones who turned my home into a cage. But what they didn't know was, this time I held the key. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family, by someone you let into your home, your life, and your trust. Because this isn't just another story about a mother and her ungrateful children. This is about what happens when kindness is mistaken for weakness. And when the woman they thought was powerless decides to fight back. I wasn't always this calm. There was a time when just hearing my son raise his voice would make my chest tighten. I used to think being a good mother meant keeping the peace at any cost, even when that peace came wrapped in silence and humiliation. I grew up in Clearwater, Florida, the eldest of 3 girls. My father drove school buses for the county, and when I was old enough, I joined the same transportation department. They used to call me Dispatch Dolores because nothing rattled me, not even hurricane season. If a route got snowed in, or a driver called out sick, I could rearrange 50 buses before my coffee turned cold. I liked order. I liked things that made sense. Life stopped making sense the day I buried my husband, Ray. He was the only man who ever made me laugh so hard I forgot about my own rules. He passed 12 years ago, from pancreatic cancer, quick, cruel. The kind of illness that teaches you how fragile normal can be. Before he died, he said one thing that stuck with me. Don't sign anything when your heart's broken. I didn't know it back then, but that sentence would save me later. After Ray was gone, I sold his old truck and kept the house a single-story brick place in St. Petersburg with white shutters and a coral front porch. I planned to live quietly, maybe plant hibiscus, maybe volunteer at the elementary school. My son Damon had just married a woman named Kendra. Bright, smile, shiny hair influencer ambitions. She called me Miss Lola the first time we met, all sugar and sweetness. But her eyes scanned the house like she was pricing every piece of furniture. Such a quaint little place, she said, her tone soft but cutting. Perfect for cozy family dinners. Back then, I thought it was a compliment. I didn't know that in her mind cozy meant temporary. They moved in 2 years after Ray died. Damon said they were saving up for a down payment. I didn't mind. I was lonely, and the thought of having noise in the house again, footsteps, laughter, even the sound of cartoons from my grandson Noah, felt like life returning. I told them they could stay as long as they needed. But as long as they needed turned into forever. At first it was little things. Kendra took over the kitchen, rearranged the cabinets for efficiency. My Pyrex dishes disappeared into boxes labeled donate. She said my curtains were too depressing, replaced them with sheer white ones that made me feel like I was living in a fishbowl. She even changed the Wi-Fi name from Lolanet to the Whitaker home. That should have been my first red flag ownership, changing one keystroke at a time. Then came the money. The electric bill started showing charges higher than I remembered. Groceries somehow doubled. I still paid them, of course. Damon said they were tight this month, and I believed him. When he thanked me, it was with the kind of quick, distracted thanks, Mom, that sounds more like obligation than gratitude. Every time I offered advice about saving, about credit cards, about budgeting, Kendra would smile that rehearsed smile and say, "We're fine, Dolores. Things are different now. You don't understand online income." Maybe I didn't. But I understood numbers and I understood respect, 2 things that were slowly vanishing. One night, I came home from Bible study to find the locks changed. Damon said it was for safety, since Kendra had been creeped out by a neighbor. I remember standing there with the grocery bags cutting into my hands, realizing they hadn't even given me a new key yet. I laughed it off, pretended it was fine. But something inside could see that making something deep cracked, just a little. I started sleeping lighter after that, listening for sounds in the hallway, voices through the wall. It wasn't fear yet. It was vigilance, the kind that women learn when they've been dismissed one too many times. I thought things might get better when Noah was born. For a while, they did. Kendra was too tired to perform for her online followers, and Damon finally looked happy again, cradling his son in the same rocking chair Ray built decades ago. I cooked, cleaned, held the baby through endless nights of crying. For those first 6 months, I almost felt needed again. But as soon as Kendra's energy returned, so did the coldness. She started filming day-in-the-life videos, perfectly lit shots of their family, dinners, and Sunday mornings. In every single frame, I was missing. If you didn't know better, you'd think I didn't live there at all. Thanksgiving 2 years ago was when I truly saw it. Kendra invited her parents and her influencer friends. The dining table seated 6. When I asked where I should sit, she smiled and said, "Oh, Miss Lola, you don't mind eating early, right? You like quiet meals anyway." She handed me a paper plate and pointed toward the kitchen counter. I ate my turkey alone that year, listening to laughter through the wall, the smell of cinnamon pie drifting toward me like a ghost of belonging. I told myself it was just one holiday, that things would go back to normal. But they never did. They began treating me like furniture that occasionally spoke. I woke before dawn to make breakfast, not because they asked, but because habit dies hard. Damon started calling me Mom only when he wanted something. Kendra rarely looked me in the eye anymore. Still, I stayed. Because this was my son. Because this was my home. Because sometimes the longest form of abuse is the one that wears a polite smile. The breaking point came one humid afternoon last summer. I was folding their laundry, as always, when Kendra appeared in the doorway holding her phone. "Lola, I need the utility bill again. The sponsorship form needs proof of address." I told her I'd already emailed it twice. She sighed dramatically. "Then do it again. You're retired, right?" "What else do you have to do?" Her words hit harder than any slap could have. But I didn't respond. Not then. That night, I sat in the dark living room, listening to the ceiling fan hum. My mother used to say, silence was God's way of making you hear yourself. And what I heard that night was a truth I had been avoiding. This wasn't help. This was captivity, dressed up as family. I didn't know it then, but that was the first night I began to plan. And once I start planning, I don't stop. After that night of silence, something inside me changed. I stopped waiting for them to respect me. Instead, I started observing every habit, every pattern, every careless mistake they made. In my years as a dispatcher, I learned one rule that kept people alive. You can't control chaos, but you can control the record. So I began keeping records. At first it was small, a notebook in my bedside drawer where I jotted down dates, bills, and remarks that made my stomach twist. When the power bill jumped again, I stapled the receipt inside. When Kendra used my debit card accidentally, I printed the bank statement and circled the charge. She laughed when she saw me filing things away. "You're so old school, Lola," she said. "Everything's digital now." She didn't realize old school is exactly what gets you proof that sticks. One morning, while making coffee, I overheard her on a call in the next room. "Yes, the house is under my husband's family name, but we're basically the owners," she said, her voice dripping with pride. "We've been paying everything for months." I froze mid-pour. "Paying everything?" My hand trembled slightly, hot coffee splashing across the counter. I stayed silent, listening as she continued. "We're even thinking about refinancing. Damon's mom doesn't mind she's barely involved anymore." That night, I looked up property laws in Florida. I read every article I could find about joint tenancy eviction unlawful detainer. The words swirled in my mind until they started forming a plan, a legal plan. Still, I needed to be careful. If I acted too soon, they'd play the victims, and Kendra was very good at that. So I waited, and I listened. Over the next few months, small cracks widened. I noticed Kendra filming more emotional content. Fake tears, talks about toxic relatives, all while wearing my late husband's watch for the camera. Damon just sat behind her ring light, scrolling through his phone, barely blinking. Sometimes I wondered if he even saw what was happening anymore, or if he just didn't want to. One afternoon, my neighbor, Reverend Bell, came by holding a small box. "Lola, he said my grandkids installed a doorbell camera for me, but I think they set it up wrong. You mind taking a look?" He chuckled, but I saw the glint in his eyes. He knew exactly what he was doing. "You should get one too," he added casually. "Not a bad idea with all the break-ins lately." That evening, I ordered a set of cameras online. I didn't tell anyone. I had them installed quietly, one near the porch and another pointing toward the driveway. When the lights blinked red for the first time, I felt something I hadn't in years control. Weeks later, the cracks turned into earthquakes. I came home from grocery shopping and found my pantry empty, my food replaced with Kendra's neatly labeled glass jars. "Minimalist aesthetic," she explained, smiling. "I'm organizing everything for your own good." I said nothing. I simply took a photo of every shelf. Then came the day my bank called. Mrs. Whitaker, the teller said gently, did you recently authorize a transaction for Sloan Creative LLC? My heart sank. That's not mine. The teller hesitated. The payment went through your online banking credentials. Kendra's company. I remembered her once asking for my laptop because the Wi-Fi was stronger in my room. That night, I went to the church fish fry alone. The smell of fried catfish and lemon oil filled the air, and for the first time I told someone everything. Reverend Bell listened quietly, his hands folded over his plate. When I finished, he nodded slowly. You ever heard of a man named Conrad Ames? He asked. He's a parishioner here. Works in civil cases, landlord property rights. Good man. I called Conrad the next morning. He met me at a diner near Gulf Boulevard. The kind of place that smelled like burnt coffee and second chances. He wore a wrinkled suit and carried a yellow legal pad. As I spoke, his pen barely stopped moving. When I told him about the bills, the locks, the house, he looked up and said, You still have your name on the deed, right? I never took it off, I said. He smiled. Then you're in control more than you think. Conrad helped me file paperwork, quiet things first, verifying ownership, freezing joint utilities, collecting evidence. He warned me not to confront them yet. They'll get sloppy, he said. People always do when they think they're winning. And he was right. One evening I heard noises outside my window, the scrape of cardboard, muffled laughter. I peeked through the blinds and saw them loading boxes into their car, whispering like thieves in their own home. My doorbell camera caught every frame. By the end of that month, Kendra started spreading stories on Facebook, claiming I was emotionally abusive, that I'd locked them out of their own home. She even posted a crying video in front of my fence captioned, Some people can't stand to see young families happy. The comments poured in with sympathy. She always knew how to weaponize pity. But this time I had something she didn't, the truth time-stamped. When the first police officer arrived, called by Damon, who claimed I stole their keys, and I didn't argue. I simply played the body cam recording from my phone, Kendra laughing while loading boxes, Damon saying, We'll post the video later, make her look crazy. The officer's jaw tightened. Ma'am, he said you keep all this footage safe. I did, every second of it. And slowly the people who used to dismiss me began to see. Yvette, the bank manager, confirmed every payment came from my account. Miles, a private investigator Conrad recommended, filed a FOIA request for the police footage. Piece by piece, my life, the one they tried to erase, was being written back into the record. One afternoon, while reviewing receipts with Conrad, I asked, Do you think I'm going too far? He looked at me, eyes steady. Ma'am, you're not going far enough. You're reclaiming your ground. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of sweet tea, watching the sunset melt into the Gulf. The house behind me was quiet. Too quiet. I could still hear echoes of laughter from months ago, see faint marks on the walls where Kendra's picture frames used to hang. But instead of sadness, I felt clarity. I thought of Ray's words again. Don't sign anything when your heart's broken. Well, my heart wasn't broken anymore. It was rebuilt stronger, sharper, and ready. So when their text came a few weeks later, we're going on a cruise, just the three of us. You understand, right? I didn't reply. I watched their car leave the driveway, waited until the sound of their laughter disappeared down the street, and then I changed the locks. By the time they came back, they found my note taped to the door. Per Florida Statute 82.01, this property is now under lawful repossession by its sole owner. Please contact legal counsel before further entry. For the first time in years, the house was silent. But it wasn't the heavy, suffocating silence I used to know. It was peace. And in that quiet, I realized something profound. The same realization every mother eventually faces when love is weaponized against her kindness is not infinite. It's a contract. And mine had just expired. The morning after they came back from the cruise, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications, missed calls, unknown numbers. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I watched through the blinds as Kendra pounded on the door, her manicured nails striking the wood like claws. You can't do this, Lola, she screamed. We live here. We paid for this house. Her voice was sharp, rehearsed the same pitch she used in her videos when she wanted sympathy. Damon stood behind her, shifting his weight, jaw tight, eyes darting toward the neighbor's window where Reverend Bell's camera light blinked. I opened the door just enough for my voice to carry through the screen. This is my house, I said calmly, and your mail is being forwarded. Kendra's face contorted. You're insane. We're calling the cops. Do that, I said. They already have the file. I closed the door before she could answer. 15 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. The same young officer who'd been there months ago stepped out, looking tired. He spoke with them first, then came to my porch. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said softly, "they're claiming unlawful eviction." I handed him the folder Conrad had helped me prepare. Deed copy ownership record court filing for unlawful detainer. He flipped through, nodding slowly. "Everything's in order." He turned toward them. "You'll need to handle this in civil court. You can't just show up and demand entry." Kendra's voice cracked into an ugly, fake sob. "She's elderly. She doesn't even know what she's doing. She's being manipulated." The officer raised a brow. "By who?" Her mouth opened, but no words came. Damon's shoulders slumped. The performance was failing. That night, the real show began online. By morning, my phone exploded again. This time it wasn't calls. It was comments. Kendra had uploaded a video, mascara streaks, shaky camera, Noah clinging to her leg. The caption read, "We were kicked out by my husband's own mother. No warning, no mercy. Please pray for us." The video had 200,000 views by noon. Monster One comment read, "Greedy old witch," said another. Someone even posted my address, blurred but recognizable. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I simply opened my notebook and wrote down the timestamp of the post. Evidence was evidence, even when dressed as pity. Conrad called that afternoon. "They're digging their own hole," he said. "Just don't engage." "I wasn't planning to," I replied. "But they're dragging Noah into it." He sighed. "That's what manipulators do. They weaponize innocence. Let them burn themselves out. We'll hit back when the facts are undeniable." The facts came faster than either of us expected. Priya Patel, one of Kendra's former coworkers, messaged me from a private account. "You don't know me, but I used to work with her at Hearthnest. She's done this before. Fabricated sob stories, GoFundMe scams. I have screenshots." When I opened the attachments, my stomach turned. There it was, a message from Kendra's Slack thread, months before she ever moved out. Thinking about starting a new content arc, mild drama, it'll engagement boost. Maybe even a GoFundMe angle. Thoughts. My hands shook as I scrolled through. Priya had saved everything. The captions, the fake tears, the staged photos. She'd even sent me a video, Kendra laughing between takes, saying, "People eat this stuff up. They love a villain." I sent everything to Conrad that night. He told me to sit tight. "We'll need corroboration. But you just got your first real crack in the armor." The next day, I stopped by Gulfsun Bank to close an account, the one I'd used for utilities. The teller, Yvette, looked up from her desk. "Mrs. Whitaker," she said carefully. "We flagged some irregular transfers. Funds sent to something called Sloan Creative LLC. Does that sound familiar?" It did. Too familiar? She turned her monitor slightly toward me. There were 6 transactions, each labeled shared expense reimbursement. "Ma'am," Yvette continued, "these were all processed from your online banking credentials." That night I called Damon. For once he picked up. "Mom," he said, his voice weary. "Can't we just talk like normal people?" "Normal people don't steal," I replied. He groaned. "You're making it sound worse than it is. Kendra she made some mistakes." "Okay." "We were under pressure. You forged transfers from my account." "Damon?" "I didn't," he said too quickly. "She handled that stuff." I didn't even know. I closed my eyes. "You live in my house. You used my money. You let her lie about me to millions of strangers. That's not ignorance, that's choice." There was a long pause, then his voice cracked. "We didn't mean for it to go this far." "Oh, but it did," I said softly. "And now you'll both see how far I can go." When I hung up, I didn't feel anger anymore, only precision. For weeks, I'd been treated like a villain in their story. Fine. Then I'd become the writer of my own. And this time, I was going to make sure every line left a scar. 2 weeks after our last phone call, a thick white envelope arrived by courier. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. The words "restraining order petition" bled through the paper like an accusation. Filed by Kendra Sloan Whitaker and Damon Whitaker. Inside, she claimed I had harassed them, stalked their child, and destroyed their sense of safety. Every word read like a script written for the camera, dramatic, convenient, and fake. But what chilled me most was the line, "We fear for our child's emotional well-being." They'd used a Noah. My sweet, gentle Noah. I drove straight to Conrad's office that afternoon, the sound of my turn signal ticking like a heartbeat. The entire way. He skimmed the papers, lips twitching in irritation. "They're overplaying their hand," he muttered. "All emotion, no evidence. That's our advantage. He flipped through the folder of proof I'd collected: receipts, screenshots, bank records, timestamps, the doorbell video, and the police body cam file. His eyes softened. You did everything right, Lola. You're about to teach them that truth doesn't need hashtags. I smiled faintly, though my hand still trembled. I don't want revenge, Conrad. I just want peace. He looked up. Then we'll win it legally. The next few days blurred into a haze of noise and venom. Kendra doubled down online, posting another tearful video, this time outside a motel pretending to be homeless. My mother-in-law threw us out. We have nowhere to go, she sobbed, while the camera conveniently cut right before the parking lot sign showing weekly rates. Vacancy. Within hours, local blogs picked it up. Someone even tagged a reporter. But not all attention is good attention, because just as the comments flooded in, a new account appeared, anonymous but well-informed. It posted side-by-side screenshots Kendra's homeless video next to a banking record from Sloan Creative LLC showing deposits, labeled content sponsorship. The post went viral overnight. The tide began to turn. When Damon called me the next morning, his voice was cracked, scared, not angry. Mom, did you leak that I don't leak? I said evenly. I document. He sighed, almost defeated. You've ruined us. No, I said quietly. You ruined you. I just stopped protecting the lie. The next escalation came faster than I expected. A police officer appeared at my door again, a different one. This time, older, sterner. He said there'd been a report of threatening behavior. I invited him in. He walked through the house, tidy quiet, filled with the smell of lemon cleaner. Everything seems fine, he said. Mind if I check your exterior cameras? Be my guest. When I showed him the footage, he frowned. These were from the night they claimed you were yelling at them. Yes, I said. I was asleep. You can see the timestamp. He nodded slowly. Then they filed a false report. He paused, lowering his voice. Keep your documentation close. Something tells me this isn't over. He was right. It wasn't. 2 days later, I received a link from Priya, the whistleblower from Kendra's old company. Watch this before it gets deleted, she wrote. The video showed Kendra rehearsing a crying segment in front of her camera. Between takes, she laughed. People love a redemption arc. Once the court date's over, I'll do a video about forgiveness. My toxic male taught me boundaries. That'll blow up. I forwarded it straight to Conrad. His reply came minutes later. We've got them. Get some rest. Rest wasn't easy, though. Not when your own child had turned into a stranger. That Sunday I went to church. I hadn't been back since the eviction. When I stepped inside, whispers rippled through the pews. Some smiled at me. Others looked away. Unsure what version of me they believed. Reverend Bell met my eyes, gave a small nod. After service, he handed me a flash drive. Footage from my doorbell, he said. The night they were thrown out. You might want this. When I watched it later, my jaw clenched so hard, it ached. There they were, Damon and Kendra laughing, carrying boxes, loading their car, hours before they called the police. Evidence, again. Conrad assembled everything into a single master file. The bank statements, the videos, the messages, the GoFundMe screenshots, even the fake homeless photo metadata that Miles, the investigator, had extracted. The location tag revealed they weren't on the street. They were at a beach resort 2 hours away. The night before the court hearing, Damon showed up at my door, alone. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. I didn't know she was going to take it that far, he said. She told me it was just content that no one would get hurt. I looked at him for a long moment, seeing not the son I raised, but the man he'd become weak, lost a mirror of every boundary I'd ever failed to draw. She told you what you wanted to hear, I said softly, and you let her. He rubbed his face. She said we could get the house if we proved you were unstable. I stayed silent. Sometimes silence is the sharpest confession extractor. When he finally spoke again, his voice broke. I don't want to lose Noah. You already did, I whispered. Every time you lied to protect her, you chose her over your son. He started crying, but I didn't reach for him. Not this time. When he left, I locked the door behind him, a clean final sound. The next morning, the sun rose cold and bright. The courthouse loomed ahead like something carved from justice and salt. As I walked up those steps, my heart wasn't pounding with fear anymore. It was steady, deliberate. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking into chaos. I was walking into order, the kind I used to create for other people, now finally serving myself. And as the heavy glass doors closed behind me, I thought, they wanted content. I'll give them a show they'll never forget. The courtroom smelled faintly of paper and recycled air, the scent of every quiet war ever fought behind oak benches. The seal of the state of Florida glinted above the judge's head. My palms rested flat on the table, calm and steady. For months, they'd painted me as the villain. Today, they'd meet the real story. Kendra swept in first, dressed in beige linen and humility. Her hair was perfectly undone, her makeup minimal, the costume of innocence. She clutched Noah's photo in her hand like a prop. Damon trailed behind her, pale eyes down. Case number 24, CV3117, the clerk announced. Sloan Whitaker versus Whitaker. The courtroom doors shut with a heavy click. Judge Celia Park entered, composed, sharp, the kind of woman who could spot a lie before it hit the air. She adjusted her glasses and nodded to the bailiff. Let's proceed. Kendra's attorney went first. A smooth man with a rehearsed tone, all fake empathy and polished outrage. Your Honor, my clients were unlawfully evicted by Mrs. Whitaker, who has shown erratic and controlling behavior. She changed the locks without notice and— Excuse me, Judge Park interrupted, her pen poised midair. Mrs. Whitaker is on the deed, correct? The lawyer faltered. Technically, yes, but then it's not unlawful eviction. Continue. The lawyer stammered, regrouped. There were also incidents of verbal abuse, emotional harm, evidence, Judge Park asked. He clicked his laptop and played a short clip. Kendra crying in front of my house, whispering she threw us out. We have nowhere to go. The sound filled the room. When it ended, the judge turned to me. Mrs. Whitaker, do you have a response? I looked to Conrad. He gave a small nod. I rose, pressed play on the small screen we'd prepared. The video began with the same night, but from Reverend Bell's doorbell camera. There was no crying, no confrontation, just Kendra and Damon loading boxes into their SUV laughing. The timestamp 2 hours before her video. The courtroom murmured. Kendra's lawyer stood frozen. Conrad's voice cut through the noise, measured and cool. Your Honor, we have multiple recordings showing the petitioners willingly vacating the premises prior to any alleged eviction. He handed the judge a folder. Exhibit A, doorbell footage. Exhibit B, police body cam verifying voluntary departure. Exhibit C, financial documents proving the property belongs solely to Mrs. Whitaker. Kendra's face drained of color. She whispered something to Damon, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. Judge Park flipped through, the page's expression unreadable. In these online statements, this GoFundMe, who initiated that? Conrad tapped his pen. We can answer that with Exhibit D. He nodded toward the screen again. A new video played Kendra mid-laugh between takes of her tearful homeless video. Her voice was bright, unguarded. This one's gonna blow up. #toxic family. Watch sympathy equals donations. The courtroom went dead silent. Even the bailiff stopped moving. Then came the final blow. Priya Patel, Kendra's former co-worker, took the stand. Small, nervous, but steady. I used to work with her, she said. She planned those posts months in advance, even tested captions for engagement. She paused, swallowing hard. She said people like stories where the older woman is the villain. Kendra's lawyer objected weakly. Speculation. Judge Park waved him off. Overruled. Continue. Priya took a breath. She once told me, I'll cry if I have to. Lies are just content until someone checks the receipts. Conrad rose again. We checked the receipts. He lifted a printed bank record. Every transfer from Mrs. Whitaker's account went into Sloan Creative LLC, the petitioner's business. We verified it with Gulf Sun Bank. Kendra's mask cracked. That's not what it looks like, she blurted. The judge turned to her sharply. Then what does it look like, Mrs. Sloan Whitaker? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like financial exploitation of a senior. Damon finally broke his silence. His voice shook. It was all her idea. Your Honor, I swear. She said it would help our image. Kendra's head snapped toward him. You liar, you. Enough, the judge said, gavel striking once. Sit down. Kendra sank into her seat, trembling not from grief this time, but from panic. Conrad laid one final document on the table. Your Honor, per Florida statute. We request a no-contact order and reimbursement of damages, including legal fees due to defamation and fraud. Judge Park looked directly at me. Mrs. Whitaker, do you have anything you'd like to say before I rule? I stood slowly. The entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. I looked at Kendra, her flawless face now streaked with fear, then at Damon, who couldn't even look up. I spoke softly, every word deliberate. I spent 30 years making sure buses full of children got home safely, even in hurricanes. My son and his wife thought they could turn my life into their storyline. But family isn't a coupon you can keep redeeming. It's earned, and they stopped paying a long time ago. Silence. Then Judge Park nodded. Petition for restraining order is denied. Counterclaim for defamation and fraud is approved. Petitioners are ordered to cease public defamation, remove all related content, and reimburse Mrs. Whitaker's legal fees. This court recommends referral for potential criminal investigation of the GoFundMe campaign. The gavel struck once a single clean sound that felt like air after drowning. Kendra's shoulders collapsed. Damon covered his face. I gathered my papers, sliding them into my leather folder. As I walked past them, Kendra hissed, "You'll regret this." I paused, met her eyes, and smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, just truthfully. "No," I said. "You will." Outside, the air was bright and sharp. Cameras waited on the steps, reporters murmuring. Conrad shielded me from them, but I looked back once, not to gloat but to mark the end. For months, they'd turned my silence into their stage. Now the story was mine again, and this time it was sworn into record. The night after court, I sat at my kitchen table, the same one they once cluttered with takeout boxes and unpaid bills. Now it was bare, except for a cup of chamomile tea and the soft hum of the ceiling fan. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was earned. Outside, St. Petersburg was sinking into that strange orange dusk that made everything look both alive and fading. I'd thought victory would feel loud, triumphant, maybe even sweet. It didn't. It felt still. The next morning, the fallout began. Kendra's sponsors started pulling out one by one. First a skincare brand, then a home decor line. Screenshots flooded social media. "We have discontinued our partnership with Mrs. Sloan Whitaker following recent findings." Her followers turned fast. The same audience that once praised her honesty now dissected every lie. Someone even uploaded a compilation of her fake tears side by side with the evidence from court. It was brutal and poetic. Damon, meanwhile, called once. I didn't answer. His voicemail was quiet, almost hollow. "Mom, I don't know where to start. She's gone. Sponsors, friends, all of it. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." Then a pause. "I miss Noah. He's staying with her sister for now. I think he's better off away from all this." I deleted the message without replaying it. Some apologies don't need witnesses. They need consequences. A few days later, Conrad sent me an envelope, the final case summary, and reimbursement check. Inside, he'd slipped a handwritten note. "Truth has a longer shelf life than any lie. You didn't just win. You documented." I smiled. Maybe that was my real revenge, not humiliation, not payback, but proof. The kind of proof that outlives noise. That weekend, Miles, the investigator, stopped by. He carried a small, dusty box. "Thought you'd want this back," he said. "The tapes from the diner and the body cam copies. I digitized them for you." I laughed softly. "I'm not sure I ever want to hear those again." He grinned. "Maybe. But someday, they'll remind you how strong you were when everyone else lied." After he left, I stood by the window looking out at the street. The wind rattled the seashell chimes. Frank had hung years ago, the last sound he ever fixed before he died. For a moment, I heard his voice in my head. "When the noise stops, listen for what stays." And what stayed was peace. Not silence born from fear, but from closure. They thought locking me out of their perfect family would destroy me. What they didn't know was they'd handed me the one weapon they could never reclaim: my own story. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, you're not alone. I was called crazy, ungrateful, even cruel, until the truth finally spoke louder than their lies. Sometimes protecting your peace means losing people who never meant you well. And that's not tragedy. That's freedom. Before you go, tell me where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you believe every person, no matter their age, deserves dignity, safety, and a voice. This story isn't over. Because for some of us, the real beginning starts the moment we say enough.